Hi, this is Lada from astrolada.com with your June 2018 horoscopes, and this month there is one big event happening in the stars, in the sky. This is Mars going retrograde, and I'm gonna walk you step by step what to do because it's a critical, pivotal period. It can affect you for the next 6-7 months after that. But before I start, just to remind you that on the 27th of May, we're starting a foundational course with me on the 12 houses of astrology, house rulers, planets in houses. You don't need to know any astrology, and it's going to be 6 months, and it's only $200. If you get on before May 27th, you get $50 off, and after that it becomes $250. It's my most successful course, and I hope you enjoy it. But otherwise, Mars, and I'm doing the same intro for all the 12 signs because I want to explain first how Mars works before it goes retrograde. And Mars goes retrograde once every 2.5 years. It's a very rare influence, but especially when Mars has gone retrograde in Aquarius like 40 years ago the last time. So the opportunities and the changes in your life that can happen now will affect you in a way that they haven't affected that they haven't been like for 40 years, almost like 40 or 50 years actually. 1971 or something, Mars went retrograde in the same place. And what does it mean to Mars go retrograde? It goes retrograde towards the end of the month. It means that Mars will be closest to Earth. From our perspective, it becomes a super bright red angry star in the sky. It means it's very strong. A retrograde planet being so much closer to Earth has its influence overpowering. So basically it will be like a boot camp of Mars energy for us for about 2-3 months while Mars is retrograde. And the most intense period is when Mars is changing direction. So this is happening in June and then again in August, towards the end in August. So from the middle of June till the end of June, it's going to be super intense time for many of us in specific areas of their life. So basically Mars till now was moving forward. Just imagine it's like you're driving, you're sailing with your ship in the journey of life forward, and you're kind of doing it on automatic. And you reach to some point. This is Mars. Mars is our actions, how we move forward, how we proceed. And often, you know, when you're driving a car and you're always on the same road, you kind of zone out and you do it automatically. This is when Mars moves direct. There are no surprises, things go according to your expectations. But now Mars slows down at the end of June. From the middle of June it slows down, the end of June it makes a roundabout and starts tracking back in the first 10 degrees of Aquarius again. So it means like almost like you reach a point here, you're driving your car and now there is a blockage. So something happens in your life that will require you to change direction in regards to your actions, in regards to the path you're walking down on. And when you're driving normally, you don't think much, it's automatic. But when when there is a blockage or you have to find a different road, you have to use a lot more of your willpower and a lot of more concentrated and focused thought, because now you're not on automatic. You have to find different solutions, you have to look for a different path, you have to fix some problem. That's what happens when Mars starts slowing down around that period, from the middle of June till maybe till the end of June. And it will require you to be a lot more conscious and present with using Mars energy. And Mars energy is moving forward, or your assertiveness, how you do things, your initiatives and activities. You can't just proceed on automatic. You have to be way more careful, way more contemplative, way more map out each step carefully, because you can make a mistake, or you can somehow hurt yourself, or you can otherwise, if you just continue like before, you can't reach the journey that you're supposed to go on. So there will be this slowing down and starting to move backwards, which means we'll slow down. Something happens here from the middle of June till the end, some crisis situation usually, or something that you hit some wall. And you have to change your direction of action. You have to change your plan games. You have to be prepared to be more flexible. And when Mars moves retrograde, it acts more like its second ruler, like Scorpio. Because when Mars moves direct, it acts more like Aries. Aries is move forward, let's initiate things, let's move ahead, very spontaneous, very, almost without thinking action. But when it starts moving backwards, it gets the energies of Scorpio more. So it means like we have to be much more strategic, much more planning, much more patient. Mars in Scorpio is patient and careful and maneuvers carefully. We have to use our willpower with way more precision, and we have to engage the willpower way more than at other times. Than we normally engage it. So it's intense period. But the ultimate goal of this Mars retrograde will be to basically help you fix some situation that is not healthy in your life or that's not productive. It's the ultimate goal is to teach you to use your Mars energy, which is initiative, assertiveness, courage, in a more productive way. If you're someone who is overly angry, something will happen here to show you that you cannot continue like that. If you're overly bossy or pushy or assertive, you'd have to reevaluate your martial behaviors, maybe apologize to people, fix something due to your impulsive energies before. Or because some actions that you've done before which were not with so much thought. Or if you're someone who has lower energy of Mars, so who is not assertive, who allows others to take advantage of them, who is not initiative, again you'll have to reevaluate your Mars behaviors, and you might have to confront those people that are blocking you from being, that are scaring you from being assertive, and you have to assert yourself. You have to, so that's why a lot more fights happen, a lot more arguments while you're readjusting the level of your Mars energy, how you initiate things, how you move forward in life, how you fight for what you believe, so all those things we're going to talk about them one by one. And Marina is doing a webinar on Mars retrograde as well in June. You can check, it's very cheap, I think it's $20 only. You can check her webinar as well, and there's a link below, and join her as well to see personally how it's going to affect you, because those predictions that I do, they're more general. They don't see specifically in your horoscope, but in that webinar she'll show you how to do it. So for Pisces, Mars is going retrograde in your 12th house, which is the hidden house, which is already Mars being retrograde makes it kind of harder to get in touch with certain, of the more direct martial energies, like starting new things and initiatives, proving yourself. And in the 12th house, it's even more kind of invisible there. So some of you guys, as Pisces, especially Pisces rising, Pisces sun people, might feel like their actions, Mars, from June somehow are starting to become invisible, that they're kind of, whatever you're doing, you're putting energy in, it's going to the waste, because 12th house is the house of loss, where it's like a black hole that swallows things, or it's like a pot without bottom, basically. And you might feel like, oh, I'm putting so many energies or so much efforts into something, but it's kind of getting dispersed in some way. That's some of the more negative influences that it can happen. And because you feel it's getting dispersed, you have to go back and retrace your actions and try even harder to do whatever you're doing. But again, you might not be able to see the results of these things and those actions before Mars starts turning direct, or even before Mars comes into Pisces, which is after September, October 2018. On another level though, 12th house is the house of doing something behind the surface, behind the scenes. So you might be required to prepare for something now. Maybe you have some plan to start something new, which is the first house, but it cannot happen before Mars turns direct and moves over your ascendant, which again, as I said, is probably around October approximately. I'm not sure, but now in June, you might start realizing that you have to kind of slow down your horses and start maybe preparing behind the scenes, working on some project. You might be for example, a graphic designer, especially 12th house is projects that are more imaginative, that require you to work, especially when Mars is retrograde, extra hard, because retrograde planets require 3 times more input, to work behind scenes or isolated or alone. Maybe you work in a laboratory and doing some research, or maybe you're preparing for some PhD and you have to do extra research behind the scenes. So maybe you're preparing some kind of a deep research is the 12th house. It can be fantastic time when Mars is retrograde to do some deep research on some topics, you know, spiritual or academic, doesn't matter. But because you have a lot of energy for that. But also, sorry, just a second. But also, it might require you, so whatever you want to start, now is not the time exactly, because the 12th house is more about endings and Mars is about initiative. So you want Mars to align with the first house before things can start manifesting. And again, as I said, it's a bit later. But now, fantastic, prepare, maybe work on that computer game that you want to release, which will come towards, you know, when Mars is on your ascendant or later on. Spend long hours behind the scene working on something of some sort. That's fantastic, especially in privacy. Something, if you require it, like maybe something to do in privacy that requires long hours, this is what Mars in the 12th house is good for. But the 12th house is also sleeping, and Mars is a restless planet. Some of you might start having more problems with the sleep, especially in June and big part of July, because Mars is retrograde there. It's much closer to Earth, so it's active energy. It's more stressful, turbulent energy. It's strongly internalized within us, and it affects our sleep. Your Pisces, if you're Pisces, sleep. So some of you actually might even do some lucid dreaming, because Mars is about awakening. Mars is something awakening, and it's because it's going to be so long in your 12th house. If you're spiritually inclined, if you want to have some breakthroughs, because a retrograde planet, Mars can, because it's so close to Earth, can allow you, by the time it turns direct, to have some breakthroughs in regards to some spiritual work and to be much more disciplined, because Mars is a soldier. It's discipline. When it's retrograde, it requires you to use consciously your efforts as a soldier. So consciously use your efforts and training abilities in regards to some spiritual practice. This is something you can be great for, especially that is maybe more physical, like some yoga spiritual practice that you do, or any kind of spiritual practice that requires you to use willpower. And meditation might be a bit harder, because meditation requires you to be still, and maybe some active meditations can be extremely helpful for you, which are not about just sitting in one place because you get antsy. As I said, even sleep problems, you can have very violent dreams. I remember I had Mars in my 12th house retrograde years ago, and I just dreamt violent and angry dreams a lot, which is good, you know, that it doesn't manifest in any other way in your life, but just that through the subconscious. Maybe you are reliving some past pain or hurt from past lifetimes. Even you might dream about past lifetimes, or something that you haven't fully been able to process, some anger that you haven't been fully able to process from past lifetimes or earlier experiences in your life can come to the surface when Mars starts going retrograde. Then be very active, and you're kind of releasing it or reliving it in those dreams and working on them, and then it's almost like a healing on a dream level that happens, like a surgical operation through your dreams of some past traumas or anger that you've been keeping. And then when Mars turns direct, you'd be freed from that. And it might be anger that you are not even aware that you have. It's anger that might be stemming from past lifetimes. It's some frustration or some anger that is on a karmic level, that is connected to past lifetimes, that is just resurfaces now, and you have to deal with it. And you might be more willing to be actually more passive aggressive when Mars is in the 12th house, to bottle it down, and that's why it can come out. And because oftentimes this aggression and this anger and frustration is on the subconscious level, it can start appearing through your dreams of some sort, or just to manifest as more passive aggressive way. But what else is it? So it's also spendings and expenses. Sometimes people can have some extra expenses when Mars goes retrograde in the 12th house. On the most positive level, it's charity, doing something for someone else without expecting something in return. It's like throwing something to the wind, basically. And Mars retrograde, if you're not a charitable person, might take from you something. So you kind of, because you're not giving willingly and you're not doing things for others willingly, you might be forced to use your willpower to give something away, you know, or to help someone. without expecting returns for it. Or if you're someone who is already into charity, who does such work, someone who works for non-profit organizations, someone who works in ashrams, in sanctuary, in prisons, in hospitals, these are all 12th house activities. You can have a very demanding time starting from June, maybe working on some project, which can even lead to promotion later on when Mars is direct. But now you'll be required to do this behind the scenes work work in such institutions like hospitals, as I said, like places of isolation, sanctuary, ashrams, you know, and be more active and put a lot more efforts and energy, fix some problems, redo something in regards to such projects, you know. On another level, I've just seen it, someone who does imaginative or creative work, 12 houses, the imagination, when Mars goes retrograde there, they just need to rework their imaginative creative project in some way. Again, it requires some frustration, it requires some extra effort, but you know. Okay, so I would advise you, if you consciously can, do some charity, force yourself if you have to, do some charity or help someone. Otherwise, the universe will kind of require you to use your energy to help someone from the outside, or you can incur some expense to, you know, of some sort. Or on another level, you know, if you're someone who does spiritual work, that's fantastic time to dig deep and delve. Or if you're doing some research, I repeat, fantastic time as well. Sleep is more restless. But what else? The 12th house is faraway countries. Mars retrograde there for you can indicate to be more careful if you're traveling to faraway places, because there might be fights there with such people, because there might be some kind of confrontations. But mostly the more difficult periods are the time of the station, so from middle of June to the end of June, and then when Mars is about to turn direct again from the second part of August. So hopefully I was able to prepare you for that, guys, Pisces, you know. And on another level, 12th house is hidden enemies. Someone that's doing something behind your back. Mars going retrograde there can bring to the surface those things. They can escalate some hidden enemies. You can start understanding that someone is brewing something behind your back and someone's been saying slanderous words or whatever. But it's kind of, you're not fully aware of what it is really until Mars turns direct again. And yeah, so it's, and I would advise you personally, don't do some kind of shifty things yourself. 12th house Mars, some hidden actions can start happening which can have negative repercussions. Don't do it now unless you're doing something hidden because you're preparing for some business launch, so you have to work behind the scenes a lot. You're preparing something positive and constructive that you have to be more private and secretive about. Then this is what Mars retrograde in your 12th house can be. But if you're doing something shifty and dodgy, Mars going retrograde there can have negative repercussions because it can create more problems in the long term. So anyway, thank you so much, Pisces. Hope that was helpful for you. And yeah, where is Venus for you? Venus is going to be in the first part of the month in your 5th house, which is good till the 5th of June, which is good for having some fun, you know, which is good for enjoying yourself, going to restaurants, to bars, to doing pleasurable activities, even dating. So it's a good time for dating in the first 15 days. And then it goes into your 6th house. It can help you with certain work projects. Because wherever Venus is, we receive ease and support there. You can make it more enjoyable for you to be more ordered and organized, even the second part, or some ease with work project of some sort. Okay, so thank you so much, Pisces. Hope that was helpful. And I will see you next month again.